Christmas is supposed to be about light, but long before Santa Claus became the symbol of the season, winter told a very different story. One filled with hunger, cold, and fear. And lurking in that darkness was something else. Krampus. A horned figure described as half goat, half demon, dragging chains through snow-covered villages. While St. Nicholas rewarded good children, Krampus punished the bad. But the question is, was Krampus ever meant to be just a story? Or was he something people genuinely believed walked the winter streets? Welcome back to Supernatural Signals. Today we're investigating the fascinating and unsettling legend of Krampus. Krampus originates in the Alpine regions of Austria, Germany, and the surrounding areas, with roots believed to stretch back before Christianity. Some scholars believe Krampus evolved from pagan horned deities associated with winter, fertility, and the natural cycle of death and rebirth. When Christianity spread across these regions, those older figures didn't disappear. Instead, they were reshaped. What may have once been a seasonal spirit or enforcer of nature became something darker, a demon. And with that transformation, his role became clear: control through fear. Krampus is often described as the anti-St. Nicholas. While St. Nicholas rewarded good behavior, Krampus punished disobedience. Instead of gifts, he carried bundles of branches, known as birch rods, used to swat naughty children. In some versions of the legend, he didn't just punish them, he abducted them. Now, every year on December 5th, villagers observe a tradition known as Krampusnacht. Men dressed as Krampus roam the streets wearing carved wooden masks, ringing bells, rattling chains, and deliberately frightening onlookers, especially children. Sounds terrifying, but to each their own. Also, keep in mind adult beverages are usually involved. Now, keep in mind that historical accounts suggest that these events weren't always harmless celebrations, because there are records of injuries and people being chased, and some children left traumatized. But usually it's just celebrations and people trying to have a little fun around the holidays. But that brings us to our next topic. Was Krampus ever seen outside the mask? Because this is when folklore begins to blur into something stranger. Let's explore the idea of Krampus being sighted in real life. Some villages recorded reports of a horned figure appearing outside of festival nights, especially during harsh winters. The descriptions remain disturbingly consistent. Tall, covered in hair or fur, hooves or clawed feet, and a presence that's caused dread before it was even seen. People reported scratching sounds at doors, heavy footsteps on rooftops, and bells ringing with no visible source. Which raises the question, was this mass hysteria fueled by tradition? Or did the tradition form after something was already being encountered? Now, before we move on, I did want to go over some specific stories that I did find online, specifically on Reddit, that tell stories of unverified sightings and modern encounters with Krampus. Now, before we get into these stories, it's important to be clear. There are no confirmed or documented sightings of Krampus outside of folklore and tradition. What does exist are unverified personal accounts shared online through forums, comments, and personal stories. With that said, let's take a look at some of these reported encounters. One account comes from a person who grew up in Europe, in a region where Krampus is a part of local folklore. As a teenager living in Croatia, they stepped outside one night during the Christmas season and noticed a figure in their neighbor's backyard. The figure was wearing a long, monk-like robe, walking with his hands held in front of their body. As it moved, the witness could hear the sound of chains dragging. At first, they assumed it was their neighbor playing a prank, but that explanation didn't make sense. The neighbor didn't have any young children. When the witness looked away and then back again, the figure was gone. Curious, they approached the fence and checked the snow. There were footprints leading to the spot where the figure had been standing, but none leading away. According to the witness, whatever they saw appeared to simply vanish. Now, another report comes of a small town in Alabama. Late one night, a person was driving with their mother and grandmother toward a local cemetery. As they turned onto the road leading to the graveyard, a tall, dark figure resembling Krampus suddenly ran across the road in front of their car, and all three occupants saw it. The witness described the figure as completely black, moving in a way that didn't resemble any form of animal. The sight was so unsettling that they decided not to stop at the cemetery and drove away instead. Now, years later, the witness says the image has stayed with them, despite trying to rationalize what they saw. They've never been able to match it with anything familiar. Alrighty, so now that we have a better understanding of who Krampus is, his legend, and overall story, let's get into some theories about this creature. So, the main theory I want to discuss is about balance, evolution, and the nature of Krampus. Because it's worth considering, was not originally meant to represent pure evil. Early versions of the figure appear to reflect balance, not punishment for its own sake. In a time when winter was dangerous and survival depended on discipline, Krampus may have symbolized a stricter force, not malicious, but corrective. A reminder that actions have consequences, especially during the harshest seasons of the year. But over time, that role began to change. As belief systems shifted and institutions gained influence, figures like Krampus were reshaped. What may have once been a symbol of balance evolved into something darker, molded by fear, control, and the need for authority. The more the story was used to intimidate, the more demonic the figure became. But the universe has a way of restoring equilibrium. As Krampus grew harsher in the collective imagination, a counterbalance emerged. Christmas itself softened. Figures like St. Nicholas took on a greater importance, representing generosity, protection, and reward rather than fear. In this view, Krampus and St. Nicholas are not opposites, but parts of a cycle, one representing restraint and consequence, and the other representing compassion and harmony. And when one side tipped too far into darkness, balance was restored. Not by erasing Krampus entirely, but surrounding the season with more light. Alrighty, so what do you think about this topic? Please leave your comments down below. And other than that, thank you for listening. And as always, stay curious and stay tuned into the supernatural. Thanks for watching.